Hello everyone, and welcome to my official 1-year anniversary video. That's right, it's been about a year since I started doing this show. And I know it's not a top quality show, but I want to say thanks for sticking with me for this long, guys. So what better way than by starting off my 1-year anniversary than showing you a lame little montage video. Don't worry, I try to stick strictly to reviews on this, and I fast forward it. But I think it's a good way to show how I evolved from the very beginning of my show into what I got right now. So here we go.
I'm going to start off with the first two. Deliverance, which is a short story and a great introduction into our first main. It's based off the Flesh Terrors. I mispronounced it earlier, you heard it, you figure it out. But if you read other novels before, but they'll just make it more familiar to you if you've already read some Ultramarine novels. But I'm worried now it's just going to be the fact that I can't pronounce half the names and the stories I read. It's going to be what I'm known for. So moving on, sorry. I think the story is not too bad. It's just the main character. Oh, punch! It feels a lot like Vietnam. Put into Warhammer 40k universe. Dude, kick-ass Space Marines, they don't really have a heart. The main character that we're going to be dealing with is Thacker. That's what I'm going with here, okay? Yeah, the chaplain! For the Emperor! Oh, I love Choppy. Yes. And he's a chaplain! 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 I'm back with a new wardrobe and a new punch review. It punched me in my soul. So much. Verity. Okay, I couldn't say the name before, I'm not going to be able to say it now. What's a lictor? You see, if you're not already familiar with the Warhammer universe, or at least played World War II, you wouldn't know what a lictor is. Now, this is just a hospice story, a final book in the series. They're going through the excellent series of Ultramarines. What just happened? Nothing! It amounts to nothing! Now, if you know anything about the Warhammer 40k universe, the only emotion that exists is rage! You must remember, we are the backbone of the Imperium. In order for us to succeed, we must hold on to our courage. And then they died. Alex, you haven't seen the last of me! We shall be avenged! Or the Black Library, the masses.
Wait.
Then shot in the head.
What? Oh, but you must understand. The Imperium are the backbone of the Imperium. They overwhelm their enemies with sheer number and ferocity. They are the heroes. You've been lying to me, haven't you? Not me, your brains! Ah, my brains! My brains! For the Blood God! And at some points, it did kind of annoy me, but it does make the book feel a little bit comfortable because you kind of know what you're getting into. So, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Well, at least the lighting got better. So even though I'm still using a cheap editor, and my effects aren't exactly what you see on par with the rest of the internet videos, I think I moved on a little bit from what I used to do. But you know, I think it's time for another change. I think it's about time I got myself a new hat. Now, doesn't that make a big difference? So I wanted to do something special for this video, for my 1-year anniversary for you guys. And I was spending a lot of time trying to think of what I could review for this. And I think I come up with the perfect thing to review. And even though I stick with books, I'm going to go for a little bit of a change on this one. Today I'm reviewing the official Warhammer movie, Ultramarines. Now, obviously, I've never done a movie review, but I'm going to try to do my best on this one. Now, this movie is a CGI animation movie, and one of the big problems people had from the beginning was that it used the Ultramarines. And I just want to get this out of the way right now. People need to stop complaining about the Ultramarines. I'll admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Ultramarines. My favorite chapter is the Blood Ravens. But whenever Game Workshops comes out with any type of product and they feature the Ultramarines, people complain. And it's not so much because the Ultramarines are the problem, but it's because they're using a Space Marine chapter that's not their particular favorite. It's not one of the more popular chapters, such as the Space Wolves, the Blood Angels, or the Blood Ravens. But you see, when Game Workshop is trying to break into a new medium, it's a good idea to use the Ultramarines. But you know what? I'm not the best person to really explain this. So that's why, just this once, I actually invited my evil doppelganger. So how would you explain it for everybody? Well, thank you for having me on this special occasion, and I'm not quite evil. But yes, it will be my pleasure to speak of the majesty that is the Ultramarines. As you see, the popularity that stems from the other Space Marine chapters are because they're simply flawed. We have the Blood Ravens who don't know their own history and the stronger mystery, or the Blood Angels who are always teetering on the side of chaos, and the Space Wolves who have that little werewolf problem who are also the Mavericks of the universe, and so on. Then you see all these flaws throughout all the Space Marine chapters in the galaxy. But the Ultramarines have none. But not because they are bland and boring, but simply because they cannot have any flaws. They are the best of the best of the Emperor's champions. They're constantly striving to be the sheer image of what it is to be a Space Marine. They always push themselves to be the best. They must show themselves the most strictest of rules just so they could keep this image of themselves that they force themselves to be the symbol for other Space Marines to strive for. That is what it means to be an Ultramarine. That is why you should never underestimate the Ultramarines, and what it means to be the true heroes of the Imperium. I couldn't have said it better myself. So with that in mind, how are they portrayed in this movie? They're very boring. I'm sorry, I might be getting a lot of heat for this, but this entire movie I found to be very boring. And it's not because they used the Ultramarines. But before I get into that, let's talk about the specifics on this movie. This movie had a late release date in 2011. You see, this movie was made by a UK-based production company called Codex Pictures, in association with Good Story Productions and Pop 6 Studios. Now, as far as my knowledge, this is the only movie that Codex Productions actually created. And from what I could find out, they don't exist anymore. And during the production, they worked very closely with Game Workshop to try to get everything about the Warhammer 40k universe accurate in this movie. Because let's face it, a lot of fanboys like us will end up nitpicking any product created on the Warhammer 40k universe to death. They even got Dad Abnett, one of the premier writers for the Black Library, to write the screenplay for this movie. So what exactly went wrong with it? Well, let's just take a look and see.
And beasts and demons alike. One day you may be worthy enough to wield it. Yes, Captain.
You see, right away you can tell that the animation isn't exactly up to par to today's standards in animation and movies. So let's try an older video game. Let's look at Dawn of War 2 and see how that game looks.
I am Gabriel Angelos, Captain of the Blood Ravens. My chapter is in ruins. The sector is at war.
Okay, wait. Let's try an older one. That was from the latest expansion to date that I showed. Let's try the original Dawn of War 2.
Primary threat spotted.
Moving into position.
Neutralizing.
Take cover!
Okay, that was several years before this. Okay, so the animation isn't exactly up to par. But you know what? This is a new team, so maybe we just let that slide. But you know what? I can't let that slide. You see, when this special edition came out, the special edition which does come with its own little metal case, 2 discs, one being a bonus disc, a little comic book, which is a confusing little story that starts up before the movie. When all this came out packaged together, well, this is the only way you could get it with the special edition. It was very expensive. I know, that's not a surprise. It's a Game Workshop's product. You are probably used to Game Workshop's gouging your wallet. But it can be argued that a lot of Game Workshop's products are very high quality. I mean, look at the quality of the models you buy. There's a lot of detail in that. But with the movie, they did get the price, but they didn't put the quality in there. And I'm not just talking about the animation. And to be honest, if the movie wasn't so much, I mean, right now the price is kind of like averaged out to the normal Blu-ray and DVD prices if you're able to find them on Amazon or eBay. But when it came out, it was just, if it was cheaper when it came out, and if the prices right now were a lot cheaper, like maybe half the price, I would definitely cut it slack. But with the prices they're charging, it's just not worth it. Okay, you know what? Let's just forget about that for now. Let's start talking about the story here. You see, a squad of Ultramarines from the second company, whose captain is not Sicarius, so I'm guessing this is a non-canon story. is sent to investigate an emergency signal they found on a shrine world. A world that was in the protection of the Imperial Fist, another Space Marine chapter. So, the captain, an apothecary, and a tactical squad that has a Space Marine called Proteus in it go to investigate. Now, why did I not mention anybody else's names? Because I can't remember any of their names. They have left no impression at all. In fact, the only reason I remember Proteus, the main character of the story, is because I actually written it down when I recently watched this movie again to refresh my memory. In fact, the entire tactical squad is just so bland, I don't know who is who. And it's not through a lack of trying. I guess they tried. I mean, here's a scene where they're inspecting their weapons. And this is a good chance for you to get a grasp of what kind of personalities they have.
Sergeant Craster, look to your battle gear, and it will protect.
I don't know any of their names. I mean, seriously, the only way I'm able to distinguish any of them is one of them has a flamer, one has a heavy bolter, one's holding the banner. And the captain has a cape, and there's an apothecary in white armor. I mean, this movie really didn't help the stereotype about the Ultramarines being bland and boring. In fact, there's a lot of scenes where just a lot of nothing happens. I mean, check out the scene of the Thunderhawk being prepped for launch. Okay, I'm going to fast forward this. I mean, really? I mean, this movie is only 76 minutes long. Wow. Hour and 16 minutes. And they were only able to reach that time with long, dry, nutting scenes going on like that. And it's not the only one. In fact, when they get to the planet, when they're kind of spreading out and try to... Wait, what was that? Why did the banner do that? The banner doesn't actually have any magical properties. It's just it's a symbol. It just represents... Why did it do that?
No mistake, demon.
It detects demons? What? Since when? I mean, again, I know I'm getting nitpicky here, but why does it do that? Okay, let's move on. I'm sure there's some explanation for that, you know, I don't know everything about the Space Marines. Maybe it's supposed to do that. So the first half of the movie is pretty much where you're supposed to get your character development and you learn their personalities. So, you got the captain, the apothecary, and Proteus. Proteus is a glory hog, sort of. That's all I got. I'm sorry. And apparently the captain believes that Proteus is going to be a really good leader. He hasn't shown any qualities in being a leader. In fact, after reading the comic, it seems like he would be a pretty bad leader. Because he's a little bit too gung-ho and doesn't really think of the big picture. It's all about the glory. But you know, maybe the captain knows something. Maybe he discovered something that we didn't see. Even though we should have seen it. And this is where I believe the big problem is with having Dan Abnett writing the screenplay. While he does great in writing novels. In fact, he goes into extreme detail in a lot of his novels. In fact, a lot of the books that I've going to be reviewing in the near future, he goes into painstaking detail on a lot of the characters in these books. And even a lot of events that most writers would have just kind of glanced over. Well, when you're going from writing books to a screenplay, it's a very different medium. Now you're writing for a visual medium. And it shows that he doesn't have much experience doing that. I don't know if he does. Maybe he has written a lot of screenplays, but this doesn't show it. It feels like we're missing a lot here. Halfway through the movie, it feels like I should know more about these characters, but I just don't. Well, fortunately, these aren't the only characters we have, because we do run into a chaplain who I don't really know much of anything about. In fact, his greatest contribution to this movie is this. I mean, seriously, I want to have my entire wall painted with that image. It's just that awesome. Mainly because he has a skull mask. And the chaplain and his homeboys guarded the Codex of the Imperial Fist. And you know what? And I'll tell you more about these characters, but I don't want to spoil too much. But I'll just say this. There's not much more to tell. It's very little bit. But you know what? You're probably wondering what caused all this destruction. What did I forget to tell you? What great enemy will cause such destruction to the Space Marines? Well, if you've seen anything on the trailers on this, it won't be much of a spoiler for me to tell you that it is Chaos Space Marines. And their main goal is... And they came to the world because... And they're led by... There's nothing else to know about them except that they're generic cannon fodder enemies. You're supposed to be worried about the Ultramarines when these guys show up, but you don't know why. I mean, it's very clear that this movie was made for the fans. Even in their big battle scene where the Chaos Space Marines are charging the Ultramarines, they are just literally a massive cannon fodder running at them. And there's this what was that? Oh, wait, is it? Wait, that was this Krozix doing that? Alright, hold on. You know, I got all the codexes here. I got a lot of the Space Marine books. I can't find any reference on why this happens. Why? Why can he do that? I mean, clearly this movie was made for the fans of Warhammer. Specifically Space Marines. Because it doesn't do a very good job in trying to get new people to watch this. At first, I thought they chose Ultramarines because Ultramarines would be the best choice to introduce new people. Well, you know what? I showed this movie to a few of my friends who've never known anything about Warhammer at all. And when I asked them questions on what's a Space Marine, just a simple question on what's a Space Marine, all they were able to come up with, well, they're soldiers in space. Or rather, elite soldiers in space, which is a very broad general brush that explains nothing about them. They didn't get why the enemies were supposed to be so dangerous. They didn't get what's so important about the MacGuffin they found. They didn't even figure out why the chaplain had a skull mask. What was the deal with the apothecary in the white armor? So I take it that this movie is strictly for hardcore fans of Warhammer. So why are you adding stuff that shouldn't be there? I mean, you know what? This is probably just a nitpick that a lot of people aren't going to care about, but I care. Well, right now, I'm just kind of like treading the same ground here. What do I think of the movie overall? It's not a horrible movie, but it's not good either. It's just a very boring movie. The story is very basic and simplistic. The enemies aren't well defined, so there's no feeling of threat coming from them. The heroes aren't well defined. The animation's a bit weak, and so is the overall CG. And the music is... Okay, I'll admit the music is pretty good in this, when you do hear the music. But overall, from a new team, it's not that bad of a movie for a new team. I just wish the price didn't gouge us. And it's a real shame, because I think the Warhammer 40k universe offers a lot in this kind of medium. There's so much you could do with it if you move it into movies, whether it be live action or CG. And I really want to see this continue on. So, would I recommend this for people trying to get into Warhammer 40k? No. I'm sorry, but it's just not going to help you get into it. Now about hardcore fans, if you're a hardcore fan, you probably already got this. If you even heard of it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you haven't even heard of this movie until I brought it up in this video. But I can't recommend this. And again, it's a shame because I want to see these movies continue being made. But for now, I think I'll stick with the book reviews. So anyway, thanks for supporting me for this long, guys. And I hope to keep seeing you for the next year to come. Until then, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth.